Streaming. Let's see what happens here. Okay, yeah, it looks like we're going through now. Fantastic. Boom, there we go. Finally, we have Mastery and Obsession episode, whatever it is, finally taking place. Episode 4. Okay, let me grab the link for those of you that are hopping in here. We will be using OBS from now on for everything. Connor, you can go ahead and hang up. Can join now. So for those of you hopping in, cannot wait. We are finally about to start this baby up. Now, whenever y'all are hopping in here, please let me know in the chat who's joining so we can go from there. I'm going to give everybody just a couple minutes to hop in so we can have everybody joining. Very excited here. Bradley Console, great to have you here, Bradley. We're going to be joining in just a moment. Great to have you, Alex. Again, feel free, do everything you need to on the background, coding, everything along those lines. I'm just going to put this off to the side. And we're going to be jumping in here. Cody, great to have you, right? Let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be covering today. So in just a moment, we're going to start off with our daily law. I am going to go about this a slightly different way. Because we're having to use OBS, I'm actually going to share the screen of the Kindle portion where we're looking at the daily law. Let me go ahead and turn off Slack and everything else. If you're on the DevSlopes team and you need me, just text me. I'm not going to be paying attention to literally anything else. So what I would love to hear, everybody so far, let me know what part of the program you're in, just so I have a little bit of context who I'm working with. Now, this week, let's talk about what we're going to be covering Monday through Friday this week. The first thing we're going to be talking about most this week, I'm in Florida. It'll be a good time. We're going to be covering the Insidious 8 in pretty extreme detail. What I've been seeing is that we're having a lot of students make a lot of really great progress in the program, but the result of that progress was really off the back of understanding what the Insidious 8 were and how we could really work around them. So we're going to recover through all those one more time. And then we will consider to kind of go through some more reaction videos, specifically when it comes to job placement, just to build up our self-awareness. Now, before we get started, let's talk about why the daily laws are important for each and every one of us. And Cody, that's awesome onboarding. What a great time to join the program. So the first thing I really want to be mindful of when it comes to DevSlopes is we have to be grounded in this idea that we want to connect ourselves to reality as much as possible. Now, when we start a job search, when we start a career search, anything along those lines, one of the things that really gets in the way is the ability to really trust our feelings over our connection to reality. So what I mean by that, it's this common trend to consistently think that, well, I feel like I'm not making progress versus looking at the onboarding deal and Thinkific and seeing that, oh, I've moved from 12 to 15%. I actually am making a lot of progress. So we want to be as connected to reality as possible. So let's go ahead and get things started off real quickly. We're going to start off with our daily law. Let me connect my AirPods here just so I can hear everything that's happening. Frogmark Eves, love it. If y'all don't mind, can everybody put in their actual names in the chat so I know who I'm working with here, just so I can chat with y'all directly? My favorite thing here is just being able to actually speak with the students inside the program. Give me just a moment. Just need my headphones connected here. Cool. Got some music in the background. Let's fucking do this. All right, so starting off with our laws of the day, right? The laws of the day. Let me go open up Riverside over here. Everybody, let's make sure that everybody can read this up here on the stream when it comes into our daily laws. I'm gonna move myself over here. So let's go through our laws for the day. This is our law for the day for our daily laws. So this is actually for October 12th. I'll work up for October 12th, 13th, and 14th, just so we can make sure that we're really clear. And for those of you that are all new here, please keep in mind, we are doing this because we need to understand how to make that job transition. Most of us come from lower income communities. I'm actually gonna put this back on myself so I can really make sure that we're starting this week off with a good hand. Most of us come from lower income communities where we don't know a lot of software engineers. We don't know a lot of business. The purpose of this episode and this podcast as a whole, teach the business side of things, teach you how to view everything with a different perspective, to teach you how to really think through the employer POV on everything. Last week, we did a lot of case studies specifically on Twitter and understanding why the layoffs that took place under Elon Musk were actually good. Insane to say, good. And we're going to continue down that route a little bit later. But today, we're going to be focused a little bit on you. Now, the daily laws, the reason why we cover these on a consistent basis is that they are our chance to do a better job rewiring our brain. The one thing I tell all students, who you are today is not the person that's going to get that job. Right? Who you are today will not be the person that gets that job. So how do you become that individual that really qualifies for that job? And the first way you do that is really learning how to change the way you think about your actual career. The first thing you want to be thinking about when it comes to your career is, how do you know what employers want? How do you provide what the employer wants? Because that's what makes the door so hard to get into. When you come from lower income areas, you don't understand business, you've never been from in an employer's POV, it's really hard to get that door open and for anybody to trust you. So we talk about freelancing, how to leverage that. We talk about a wide variety of things. So let's go ahead and start off with our daily laws. So starting with October 12th. You must see, so October 12th, see things as they are, not as your emotions color them. You must see your emotional response to events as a kind of disease that must be remedied. Fear will make you overestimate the enemy and act too defensively. So how many of us get scared and we act impulsively and act a little bit out of character? Anger and impatience will draw you into rash actions that will cut off your options. Overconfidence, particularly as a result of success, will make you go too far. Love and affection will blind you from the treacherous maneuvers of those apparently on your side. Even the subtlest of gradations of these emotions can color the way you look at events. The only remedy is to be aware that the pool of emotions is inevitable. We will be pulled away by our emotions. To notice this is the importance is to notice when this is happening and to compensate for it. When you have success, be extra wary. When you're angry, take no actions. When you're fearful, know that you're exaggerating the dangers that you face. Think about when you go through the program, when you signed up for DevSlips, any of those things. We get really fearful. It's really common for us just to dip or just freeze. We don't do anything. We want to learn how to set those emotions to the side and look at the circumstance. What is happening? What is the truth? The more that you have the ability to separate those things, the better off you go. And here's the daily law summarized. Life depends on the utmost in realism, seeing things as they are. The more that you can limit or compensate for your emotional responses, the closer you come to this ideal. In short, one of the reasons why a lot of people from lower income communities do not make the career transition that they want to make is because they allow their emotions to rule over them. When they get stuck, when they feel like an employer is on them and they're stressing them out, one of the things that's really common for those individuals do is to shut down. Another thing is to isolate, not ask for help, right? They start thinking that people don't get it. They don't want me here because of my XYZ background, because of my race, because of anything. We start looking for all of these things. The more that you could separate those emotions from how you feel, from what we need to do today, the better off you're going to be. And you're going to understand as we cover a lot of these different aspects, that's what's going to help you a lot. Now, let's move over to October 13th. October 13th is change your circumstances by changing your attitude. And as a quote from William James, the greatest discovery of my generation is the fact that human beings can alter their lives by altering the attitudes of the mind. Imagine the following scenario. A young American must spend a year studying in Paris. He is somewhat timid and cautious, prone to feelings of depression and low self-esteem, but he's genuinely excited by this opportunity. Once there, he finds it hard to speak the language, and the mistakes he makes, and even at the slightest, the mistakes he makes, and the slightly derogatory attitude of the Persians makes it even harder for him to learn. So he's scared of the people, essentially. He finds the people not friendly at all. The weather is damp and gloomy. The food is too rich. Even Notre Dame Cathedral seems disappointing. The area around it is so crowded with tourists. He concludes that Paris is overrated and a rather unpleasant place. Now, imagine the same scenario, but with a young woman who is more extroverted and has an adventurous spirit. She's not bothered by making mistakes in French, nor does the occasional snide remark from a Parisian, a person from Paris. She finds learning the language a pleasant challenge. Others find her spirit engaging. She makes friends more easily, and with more contacts, she learns lots of French to improve. She finds the weather romantic and quite suitable to the place. To her, the city represents endless adventure, and she finds it enchanting. In this case, two people see and judge the city opposite ways. The world simply exists as it is. Things or events are not good or bad, right or wrong, ugly or beautiful. It is we, with our particular perspectives, who add color to or subtract from the things and people. We focus on either a beautiful Gothic architecture or the annoying tourists. So here's the law simplified. We, with our mindset, can make people respond to us in a friendly or unfriendly manner, depending on our anxiety or openness. We shape much of the reality that we perceive and dictated by our moods and emotions. The summary of this, right? And then after this, we'll move on to today's and so forth. But first and foremost, when you're going through a learning experience, this is something I'm reading right now from a book called The Hidden Potential. I believe it's by Adam Grant. One of the things it talks about, and what this really emphasizes, is when we face massive amounts of discomfort, how do you respond to discomfort? One thing that you can take as a fact, this is a black and white fact. The individuals who are capable of making career transitions, the story behind why employers want to hire them is because they're so comfortable learning and experiencing new things. One fact as a software engineer, marketer, whatever you are, in your process of getting a new career, you will have to learn a wide variety of new things. So if you ask yourself, when you're sitting down with an employer and they're saying, why should we hire you, Timmy, or whatever your name is? Why should we hire you? The first thing that you want to come out of your mouth is, one of the reasons why, Lewis, that you should hire me is because I love learning new things. One of the things I can tell you with complete confidence is that as I've been learning how to become a software engineer, I've had to learn a wide variety of different languages. And I know for a fact I'm going to have to learn more, right? Stepping into your code base, like we talked about last week. For a lot of you who are new, you may not know what we're about to talk about. One thing that we did, our CTO came on last week, Peter, and we looked through how to read a code base for somebody who's brand new and how it's a really intimidating process. I'm going to put this down just to make it a little bit easier for me to read everything. And how reading a code base can be a really intimidating process for everybody. So let me just move this out of the way here. So when you're getting started, one of the reasons why there is a lot of obstacles in the way for you to get started, this is going to drive me nuts. I have to adjust this. One of the reasons that there's so many obstacles in the way for you getting started is because there has to be. When you're brand new to something, there needs to be something that separates the brand new people from the haves and the have-nots. The way that you stand out is showing that you have the ability to learn new things over and over again. And employers don't want to hire entry-level developers because the vast majority of them come with this preset of knowledge that they have, that they spent 15 weeks learning, or they took a boot camp or a course or whatever it was, but they never developed the ability to learn on their own, to create on their own, anything along those lines. So if you ever wonder why employers don't hire new developers or are really hesitant to hire entry-level developers, a lot of that is because they don't trust them. And it's a perfect example of this story, right? Do you have an ability to really control your POV? Now, October 14th, which is today, then we're going to move onwards. And it's confront your dark side. Our whole being is nothing but a fight against the dark forces within ourselves. And we can really see this plan with the Insidious 8. To live is to war with trolls in heart and soul. To write is to sit to judgment on oneself, right? So if you've created or you have crafted a public persona that accentuates your strengths and conceals your weaknesses, you've repressed the less socially acceptable traits that you naturally possess as a child. You've become terribly nice and pleasant, and you have a dark side, one that you loathe to admit or examine. It contains your deepest insecurities, your secret desires to hurt people, even those close to you, your fantasies of revenge, your suspicions of others, your hunger for more attention and power. The dark side haunts your dreams. It leaks out in moments of inexplicable depression, unusual anxiety, and touchy moods, sudden neediness and suspicious thoughts. it comes out in offhand comments that you later regret. However, how many of us make those offhand comments and we're like, fuck, man, I wish I never said that. It makes me seem really stupid. And sometimes it even leads to destructive behavior. You will tend to blame circumstances or other people for those moods and behaviors, but they keep occurring because you are unaware of their source. Depression and anxiety come from not being your complete self, from always playing a role. It requires great energy to keep the dark side at bay, but at times unpleasant behavior leaks out as a way to release the inner tension. So here's the daily law. Recognize and examine your dark side of your character. Once subjected to conscious scrutiny, it loses its destructive power. So those are the daily laws that we're going to start off with above all else. And the reason why we bring these things out, the ultimate goal is a better understanding of self-awareness. When you start the job search, when you do a wide variety of things, you want to be really aware of where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. Because when employers call you in, they really want to understand, you know what, Steve? You know what, Alex? You know what, Cody? You know what, Lucas? Right? You know what, Eric, Bradley, Mark, Nick? They want to know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and what are you going to bring to the team as a whole. And these are really hard things to actually have to recognize. So the entire purpose of bringing these things up, what I want to hear with time is, what are the weaknesses that you have? And I would love for y'all to put some of these in the chat so we can digest them over time. A lot of us have these issues to where we start hearing about these problems that are taking place, and we really have issues with actually addressing the things that are holding us back. We're not aware of them. And then we start the interview process. We start applying for jobs. And what typically ends up taking place is that we turn off all the employers so much. Now, what we're going to do right now is we're going to move over to a video that I saw that I think is really healthy. What it covers is a video that I thought would be really helpful. Someone sent this in to me and said, hey, would you mind playing this video and having us address the thoughts on it? And one of the things that's covering is how hard it is to be somebody coming into the modern era of trying to get a job, trying to make a career transition, and how it could just be a brutal experience. Now, one thing I gotta be able to get though is this real quickly. Let's do microphone. I'm gonna figure out how to play audio here. Bear with me for a second, everybody. So we have it right here. Sorry, here. So I just need to make sure that y'all can hear and see everything that I'm playing here. Bear with me, it's my first time having to use this video capture device. Can y'all let me know? You hear me twice? Got it. Cool. That takes care of that. Window capture. Let me know if y'all hear this. I'm going to click play real fast. The echo should be gone now. I'm going to click play real fast. Let me know if y'all hear this. Let me know. Do y'all hear that at all by chance? Okay. No joke. Okay. Video capture device. Nope. Y'all just bear with me. This is the last time I do it to deal with this without having the chaos here. Just not media source. Remove. Do y'all remember which one it is in OBS? I forgot if it's display capture. I think it's like video source, is it not? So I have window capture here. And add, well, that's what I did. I added the window. Let me see if I, let me call Connor real fast and have him let me know.
First off, most of my stats are about America. I apologize, but I would
Can everybody
argue
let me
most of these
know?
trends
Do you
are
hear
pretty
this audio that I'm
similar
playing right
in
now?
Europe and in the UK. In the US, for the first time in our 275-year history, a 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents.
No shit, they can
economically.
hear that. Okay.
And that may not sound like a big deal, but
Okay, so apparently we just have to share the audio. Okay. That's fucking strange, but that's fine. Okay. Yeah, that apparently did it. We did window capture, right? That's what we did. No, we did display capture. Yep. That's stupid. Okay, whatever. Alright, that's fine. Okay, 1 second. Let me make sure that I'm gonna have to minimize this baby a lot. Great. Okay, everybody. Fantastic. So we're good here. Boom. Alright, Connor, you're good. See you later. Bye. Now, what a funny way for us to have to solve this, everybody. Okay. Move up. Order, move up. Sweet. What a, okay. How am I going to handle this? So this is not ideal when you have a big ass screen. That's the funny part about all this. Boom. Okay. For those of you that stuck with me, this is hilarious. I'm not going to lie. thank you all so much for sticking with me on this. I know this is a little impatient here to deal with. Now, Scott Galloway, who he is, he's a professor. He's been working with a lot of people specifically on their job searches. And I thought that this guy would be an amazing person for us to really be mindful of when people are talking about the career search, everything along those lines. So, I haven't seen this. Let's see what this has to say. This was sent in from one of the students.
Let's just dive right in on the war on youth. Like your contention is that society is treating young people very badly.
Yeah.
My kids love this idea.
Oh yeah.
But, like,
yeah.
Expound.
So. America, I apologize, but I would argue most of these trends are pretty similar in Europe and in the UK. In the US, for the first time in our 275-year history, a 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents economically. And that may not sound like a big deal, but I think that's essentially the social compact.
So people that are in their 30s are doing better than their parents were in the previous generation. Sounds 100% right, by the way. And let me know. This is hilarious watching me have to debug. Let me know if the sound, because I had to unplug my headphones, if the sound from the computer is picking up on the mic, just so I can know if it's a bad experience for y'all.
Breaking. And it creates rage and shame. I mean, what do you want? You want to play by the rules, you want to work hard, and then the ultimate outcome is your kids are going to do as well or better than you. And when that doesn't happen, it creates just tremendous dissatisfaction with everything. The average 70-year-old is 72% wealthier than they were 40 years ago. The average person under the age of 40 is 24% less wealthy. And if you think, I believe that almost every major economic policy in the US is nothing but a thinly veiled transfer of wealth from young to old, from the entrants to the incumbents. Two biggest tax deductions, capital gains and mortgage interest. Who owns stocks and homes? People my age. Who makes their money from current income and rents? Young people. Social Security, which you're not supposed to talk about as this third rail, I see it as just a $1.4 trillion transfer of wealth from young people to the wealthiest generation in the history of the planet. I'm not suggesting Social Security is a bad idea, but let's call it senior security, because I think that type of transfer of wealth should be based on need, not on whether or not you have a catheter. So I think it's outrageous what is going on. And what do you know? We have, and then the ultimate intergenerational wealth transfer in the history of the planet was, I have an idea, under the auspices of a virus, a million people would be bad, dying would be bad, but what would be tragic is if boomers got less wealthy. So let's come in and flood the market with $5 to $7 trillion.
So I think that this is super helpful. I think what it's going to be covering, though, is advice to Gen Z. Let's see what they have to say.
I mean, what's your advice this message resonates like incredibly well online. You've given lectures, TED Talks, whatever, and everyone I know between the ages of 25 and 45 know who you are, right? What's your advice to them? Like, they're not going to change the world and fix all these things. We're not going to, overnight. So, like, if you're coming up right now, how do you navigate this?
Well, it sounds very trite, but the first thing is vote. But look, we have the power. We're the ones that have money, and money has basically become more important than votes in DC. So the question is, and we all see this, we all see kids, friends of our kids, we see, I think, something going on, right? And so it strikes me that past generations have always made these forward-leaning investments, and we're no longer doing that. And I don't know if it's an intergenerational selfishness. I don't know what it is, but if we don't adopt and elect people who have, there's a bunch of things. We need ranked choice voting. We need to make it such that an organization that has an approval rate of 8% doesn't have a 94% reelection. We need to elect more moderates instead of the crazy.
Okay, so what we were for sure no, nobody missed a lot. So I'm being sent a handful of videos for us to react to. I don't think this is the right one. This is just not a good fit for us. What I am going to do is, this is something from Robert Greene that I think will be super practical for literally everybody here. A little bit more on base. I appreciate y'all sending in the videos. From time to time, we're going to have this happen where someone sends in something just not great fit on the stream immediately. No big deal whatsoever. I want to stay on the theme, though, specifically of self-mastery, self-awareness, a lot of these aspects. Robert Greene is the individual that wrote everything on this idea of learning how to become more self-aware, learning how to make these career transitions, learning how to find a way to get in the door that's locked for anybody from lower income communities, from disadvantaged communities, all those aspects. So let's transition over here. Let's something a little bit more practical.
I want you to develop a different mindset. I want you to go against the tide of the 21st century and develop mastery. I wrote a book. It came out, I think 10 years ago now, maybe 9 years ago, called Mastery. It is my 5th book, and it's a very, very important book, and I'm going to summarize it for you. I'll just say first that the reason it's so important is a lot of people nowadays are very undisciplined. They think because of their phones and because of technology, they can get whatever they want just by clicking, just by pointing their finger, and it kind of carries over into all aspects of life. And I want you to develop a different mindset. I want you to go against the tide of the 21st century and develop mastery. So how do you do it? There are 6 steps that I lay out in the book. The first step is by far the most important, and it's not by far the most important in the...
So we're going to draw along as we do this, right? So one of the things that Robert Greene always emphasizes is that each and every one of you, the reason why this matters is you want to think about how are you going to tell your story? How are you going to become great at what you do? So I'm going to put this over here, right? Let's go back just a little bit. Let's go back just a little bit. See what
So how do you do it? There are 6 steps that I lay out in the book. The first step is by far the most important.
The 6 steps self-mastery. By the way, one of the things I love about this, I want to let y'all know, this is how I do almost all of my studying. I'll come in here, I'll watch something like this, I'll take notes, and then I'll process afterwards. I'll take time to think, okay, what did I just watch? What was the impact it had on me? What did I think about it? So this gives all of you the ability to really go inside the mind of not necessarily, I don't want to big brain it and say a quote unquote CEO, but what goes in the mind of somebody who's paid to be a strategist? What goes in the mind of somebody who's supposed to be a professional learner per se, right? This is what I think will be really valuable for all of you. So let me minimize the screen a little bit more so y'all can read everything. Boom. Hopefully it's a little bit more digestible for everybody here. So we're gonna come over here, 6 steps of self-mastery. Cool. Let's scoot this video over a little bit. Now let's play this.
important. And it's not by far the most important in the book. It's the most important thing in your life. You master this first chapter and everything else will fall into place. It's discover your life's task. Discover what makes you unique. Discover what you were meant to accomplish in life, right? Your calling. What that means is when you were very young, you were a unique person. Your DNA, your experiences in life mark you out as like nobody else that has ever existed in the past or will ever exist in the future. You are one of a kind. You were meant to do something in life that reflects that uniqueness, whether it's in sports, whether it's in music or the arts, whether it's in science and mathematics, whether it's in social and working with other people, whether it's in an engineering sense.
What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna, because it's gonna take up a lot of space, we're gonna watch this, then in a little bit, I'll share over the document of what I'm taking notes on. So we could just focus on this right now.
Kind of abstract reasoning. You have a power, a superpower. It was given to you, a seed that was planted at your birth. And if you know what that uniqueness is, if you're able to hone in on it, now when you're 20 years old and you enter the work world, you have a sense of direction. I love physical things. I'm born for athletics, for sports. All right, now you can follow that path. And then eventually in your career, you'll turn that into something larger. Or for me, it was writing, etc. I experimented, I tried different forms of writing, but knowing that that was my life's purpose gave me an incredible sense of direction. In my book, Master, I give you all kinds of tips for discovering it, It's a voice inside of you that you're not listening to, but that you can rediscover. Once you find your life's task, you then enter in the second phase, which is the apprenticeship phase, which is the most important in a way. I mean, the first one is the key. The second one is the most kind of critical for your progress. It's the period in your 20s when you're learning various skills. You want to value learning over money. What matters to you is learning as much as you can about the field that excites you, developing skills that you can combine later on when you turn 30 or 32 into something unique and powerful, a business, a startup, a book, any kind of career in science or whatever, right? You need to be developing skills and taking it very seriously, gaining the discipline that will carry you through life. And just think of your 20s as an apprenticeship phase that you have to go through, just like it did in the Middle Ages, like 7, 8 years of working diligently. And if it's something that you love, it's exciting. The third thing is actually a part of the apprenticeship phase, and it's what I call working with a mentor. So there are no shortcuts to mastery. There are no hacks. There are no way to cut it down from 10 years of hard work to 2 years. But having a good mentor is the only conceivable shortcut. Finding somebody who has experience, who's made mistakes, who can teach you, guide you, who can say, this is good, this is bad, can help you avoid wasting a lot of time and really give you the focus that is necessary. And in mastery, I give you clues for finding the perfect mentor. It's generally someone that you connect with emotionally. It's like your second parent, but it could be a very valuable relationship. The fourth step is what I call social intelligence. And what I mean by that is you could be so brilliant at what you do. You could have all the skill in the world. You could be technically proficient. You could know coding left, right, and center better than anyone else. But if you're not good with people, it won't matter at all, right? You'll be making mistakes. You'll be offending people. And every time you advance through your brilliant ideas, you'll fall back because you'll say something stupid, you'll do something bad, and we're a social animal. So this chapter,
The parts of this that is jumping out to y'all, let me know. We want to be able to discuss and really go into great detail on all these aspects.
this part is about developing it like you develop skills in the apprenticeship phase. Your social intelligence is a skill you must develop. And I explain how you need to be empathetic, how you need to be more attentive to other people. If you are socially intelligent and you have skill, the world is your oyster. You will open up, and that opens up to the fifth step in the way, which is unlocking your creativity. Once you have learned all the heuristics, all of the skills you need to learn in your particular field, and you're socially aware, you've worked with a mentor, now you're able to take all of those ideas and to make something original and creative, to take that energy and do something that no one else has done before. And a lot of people don't do that. They're afraid now. They've learned all the skills, all the things they need to know, but to take that next step and do something different, start their own business, write something new that's never been written before, create an organization that's never been done before, they're afraid of that. They're locked in that apprenticeship phase. They don't want to leave it. They want to stay with the corporation and do what you want. Creativity means I'm going to take all those skills and I'm going to be bold and I'm going to do something new and different. And if you follow the path that I lay out in the first 4 chapters, your mind will start opening up and things will come to you. And I have many stories in there of the beautiful things that happen to people once they enter that realm of starting to be creative.
Now, before we go any further, let's think about this, right? Most of us, when starting any kind of process like this, I'm going to turn this camera down just a little bit. Most of us, when starting a process for learning new skills, anything along those lines, how common is it for us to get tripped up on dumb shit all the time? So a lot of you are here because you found your task. I want to be creative through technology. I want to build software. Because you have the chance to really build something that can impact millions of people, right? It could impact so many people in a wide variety of ways. That's an absolute blessing. You found that aspect. The second aspect, you're in your apprenticeship phase. Now, luckily, all of you have mentors, including myself, all of your technical mentors, your professional mentors, including Dustin, Rakeem, Beanie. Mentors, you got locked down. The big aspect here is, and I wrote this down because I think that most of you can really benefit from this, and I'd love to hear feedback. How to effectively use your mentor and work with them. As I've been looking at the growth of a lot of students in the program, one thing that I think I've seen that definitely ties into the NCADS 8 is isolation. Either in the sense of, I don't know how to ask for help, people won't get it, I'm not good enough to ask for help, things along those lines. By the way, it's great to see you, Nicholas. Thank you for clarifying that. What I would love to hear is, what are the obstacles a lot of you are facing when it comes to getting help from mentors? I would really love to get a solid breakdown of that. What are the obstacles? Because it seems like what I've seen across the board is that a large portion of you really struggle with this. So while I wait to get a handful of y'all's responses on this, I'm going to transition over. And while I'm waiting, let's talk about kind of the 6 stages of self-mastery here, right? So this is the notes that I was able to take from this. Our goal is to always, when we're learning, you want to make sure to have these notes ready that we can go through. So again, let's re-emphasize this video one more time. Number 1, discover your life's task. What makes you unique? What makes this your calling, right? If you are a one-of-a-kind person, you are unique, how do you tell the story of what's happened to you across your life? All of us have had these really great, really horrible things. I think the best way to really address it is we have the good, bad, and the ugly that have happened to us. How do we put all of this together and sell ourselves and our ability to work within teams because of that, right? As you can tell, only one thing is good. Good, bad, ugly, right? We probably don't want to share too much of the ugly, but we need to be self-aware of the 3 categories. In addition, if you're self-aware and able to hone in on what your strength is and what gives you your advantage, right? So these advantages can really vary, right? These advantages could be you grew up tech savvy and know what people are interested in online. B, you understand online culture. C, maybe it's something to where you're on the spectrum and recognize patterns faster and have a love for, let's say, animals, right? These might all seem really strange things. D, you struggle to trust others, but that means you go out of your way to understand others' motivations, which means you can be a great manager, right? There's a lot of these really unique things that you can really hone in on to take advantage. Now, I'm gonna glance at the chat real fast. Obstacles are an all-time management related. Coming from some experiences the other way around, I try to teach to be rough because they don't do the best at, one second. Oh man, Clinton, I'm gonna address this. You know what? We're gonna do this right now. All right, how many people in the chat right now? Okay, this is gonna be really fun. How many of y'all in the chat right now? I'm so excited for this. I've been waiting to actually address this. How many of y'all in the chat right now feel that there are a lot of different learning styles? Right? How many of you in the chat right now feel that, hey, I learn with auditory stuff. I do my best learning when I'm reading something. And how many of you feel like you do your best when you're doing something? Like you have a wide variety of ways that you think that you learn. Like how many of you think that you learn best by listening? Some learn best by doing. How many of you learn best by watching or reading? I want everybody in the chat right now. There's about 25 of us, not a lot of us. Perfect. This is what I'm looking for. Being shown how to do, then doing it myself with accessible feedback. Okay. Everybody keep this going, please. Y'all are going to see what I'm getting at. I think what we've all agreed on, right? All of us have agreed on one thing that I really want to emphasize: watching and doing. For Louise, I learned best by watching and doing, watching and doing. I learned best by trying out what I just saw. I learn best by hands-on experience. I don't learn well with words by watching and doing. Okay, by watching and doing this, okay, fantastic. So I'm very excited for us to talk about this. Styles of learning. So what we're going to talk about real quickly. Give me a second to find this. I'm so excited for this. By the way, if any of you use the idea that I have a specific way of learning and I need to do it this way, all of you are about to have one of the biggest breakthroughs you've ever had for how to learn to do new things. Give me a second to find this. Everybody just bear with me while I look through this. Oh man, where is it? Okay, here we go. I cannot wait to find this. Okay, chapter 1. Okay, now we're making progress. Polyglot. Languages at home. So I'm going through the book that I just went through. Illustrations help me a lot. I learned from pure theory, but more difficult. How many of you prefer reading versus learning? Like you feel like you have a preferred learning style where you do best? Found it. Okay, I'm going to read this out to everybody in just a moment. First and foremost, before I answer this, how many of you believe that you have a style of learning, right? Whether it was learning through, show me how to do it and let me try it. I absolutely love that, Chris. So what we're going to get into now, I finally found this. Chris, it's actually really funny that you joined. You're going to hear something that I've been working on for a long time. So students, let's now jump over here. So I'm going to move over here. Now the reason for me showing this, I really want to emphasize the reason for me showing this, I literally just bought this book. I've had it on Kindle. The reason why we're going through this is because we want to be connected to reality. We're going to go through a very long aspect here, right? So starting off, I'm going to shorten this down actually a little bit because it's easier for me to read. Move this out of the way. I'll tell you what, this is a little annoying to figure out here. We're just going to do it like this. Okay. So, going on a style. There's popular practices in schools that have dissuaded many learners from seeking discomfort. In-arouse as a well-intentioned solution to a pervasive problem in the American education system. For decades, many schools were run like assembly lines in a factory. Students were treated as interchangeable parts in mass production of young minds. Despite having different strengths, they were stuck absorbing uniform knowledge through the same standardized lessons and lectures. Now, real quickly, How many of us think that school is the worst because everybody's forced to have to learn the exact same way, right? Nobody should have to be forced to learn the same way. Schools should be able to modify to students' needs, right? A lot of us think that this is the truth. We need to be adjusting everything for what schools are looking for. Like everybody feels that way to everything that I've looked at. Almost everybody feels that way. Now moving over a little bit. In the 1970s, a new way of thinking upended the world of education. The core premise was that when students struggled, it was because of the method of instruction wasn't tailored to their learning style. The cognitive mode in which they were best at acquiring and retaining information to grasp new concepts. Verbal learners needed to read and write them. Visual learners needed to see the illustrations and images, diagrams, and charts. Auditory learners needed to hear them out loud, and kinesthetic learners needed to experience them through acting them out with body movements. The theory of learning styles exploded in popularity. Parents were thrilled that their children were being recognized for their individuality. Teachers loved having the freedom to vary the methods and personalize their material. Today, learning styles are a foundational element of learning training and student experience. Around the world, 89% of teachers believe in matching their instruction to teachers' learning styles. Many students have told me that their podcasts to books because they're auditory. They prefer podcasts to books because they're auditory learners. Did you decide this book with your eyes because you identified as a verbal or visual learner? There's just one small problem with learning styles. They're a myth. When a team of experts conducted a comprehensive review of several decades of research on learning styles, they found an alarming lack of support for the theory. In controlled experiments with specific lessons and longitudinal studies over the course of a semester, students and adults didn't do any better on tests when the teachers or study habits aligned with their abilities or their preferences. There's no adequate evidence base to justify incorporating learning style assessments into general education practice, the research concluded, right? This is striking and disturbing. Now, we don't want to go back to the rigid style of learning where everything is just pigeonholed, but one thing that we can know, the way you like to learn is what makes you comfortable, but it isn't necessarily how you learn best. Sometimes you even learn better in the mode that makes you the most uncomfortable because you have to work harder at it. This is the first form of courage, being brave enough to embrace discomfort and throw your learning style out the windows. How unbelievable is this, right? By the way, we could all say we hated grade school. None of those things matter into the purpose of why we're covering this. This is not about homeschool. This is not about anything. This is about skill acquisition. We could have at DevSlope sent you a wide variety of other things instead. So the big point that I really want to get at with this book, this comes down to a character focus, right? So one of the things that he starts the book off, growing roses from concrete, right? Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete, proving nature's laws wrong? Learn to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. The reason why I bring this up for a lot of you, right? Oh, fuck. All of us hated grade school. Grade school sucked so much for the vast majority of us. Learning new things is such a pain in the ass. What all of this always comes back to is your story. When you come from a background where you have no coding experience, no job experience whatsoever with what you're trying to learn, how are you supposed to sell yourself to employers? That's the first thing. What are you going to do, Luis, Alex, Jordan, Cody, right? Greg, Bradley, Richard, right? Sam, Nicholas. When you have no coding experience, and you're sitting down in front of an employer, and they're asking you, Sam, why should we hire you? Nick, why should we hire you? Richard, why should we hire Cody? Why should we hire you? And they're comparing you immediately against all the other candidates. And they're just going to do really quick, immediate judgments on if we should trust you or not. What about you is going to make them want to trust you, make them want to hire you. And a lot of this is, first and foremost, you understand, you know for a fact that you have the ability to learn new things. If we have one focus at DevSlips above all else, one of the things is I don't want it to be a 15-week learning experience for you. Because force-feeding information for 15 weeks just shows me that you can retain information. It doesn't mean that you know what you're talking about. Employers want to hire people that know what they're doing. Does everybody remember last week, whenever Peter opened up, I don't know, and I told them I'm willing to learn. Guys, that's what I'm talking about, man. Cody, I really want to emphasize this. Saying things like that, like, as long as you just know my true intentions, I'm going to be here to work with you. Done. They will not hire you, right? These are things that you don't say to employers. In fact, everybody, I would like to hear everybody's answers. When an employer asks you, why should we hire you? I want everybody in the comments right now to write down why they think that employer should hire them. If an employer were to say, you know what, Cody, why should we hire you? What's your response? I want everybody to give me a response right now. What's the line from Pursuit of Happiness then? Give me all of these responses. Then what I'm going to do in just a moment, let's give context, right? Give me a moment to open this up. Guys, I need more responses here. I need to know what's going to happen when an employer says, you know what, why should we hire you? None of these are good answers. And Cody, I actually love that you're stepping in, because one of the goals here is we want to teach you these things as fast as possible. I need to make sure, the entire staff needs to make sure that you understand how to respond to this. Yeah, Sam, you're not the best at what you do. There's thousands of other better mid to senior level developers, so that doesn't work either. Gabriel, doesn't matter. Dirty Harry Films. That's a really good response. I actually really appreciate the honesty of this more than anything else. Thank you for your time and move on. Okay. I would write more of it. That's okay, Bradley. So let's talk about real quickly, right? When an employer asks what your strengths are, right? In fact, you know what I'm gonna do? Give me a moment, everybody. Give me just a moment. I'm gonna bring somebody on to help out. Okay. When you're speaking to an employer for the first time and you have no coding experience, because one thing that's out the door, right? You have no professional experience for the most part that you can rely on. That's out the window. That's problematic, right? Saying they should trust you, that you're the best at what you do, none of that's true. So we can't rely on any of that, because that's what the employer is going to think. Dude, you're brand new. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not going to be helpful, right? It's not a good response, right? I'm always willing to learn, always willing to learn. I want to try to master as many skills as I can. Okay, fantastic. So this is what you're going to talk about. You can say, first and foremost, I just want to say, really appreciate you having me in the interview. This is really, really helpful. What I want to acknowledge is one of my biggest strengths is my ability to step into a situation, understand that there's a lot of things we don't know, and really being able to dissect that situation. I really think that problem solving is one of my biggest strengths. Whenever I had this previous career, and let's say when I previously worked in personal training, it was really common for me to have a lot of situations where things were thrown at me out of nowhere, and I had to learn how to scramble on my feet. My biggest strength is being able to problem solve and scramble on my feet, and also work with a team. I would say that my really big strength comes from now being able to tie those skills in to the software engineering world. Essentially, long story short, employers want to know, will they have to handhold you? Will you be resourceful? Will you be a self-starter? They don't want to handhold you. Actually, now that we have Beanie coming in. Hey, can you hear me? 1 second. Hey, can you hear me? You got a couple minutes? All right, I'm putting you on speaker. I have you on the live show right now.
Oh, fantastic.
First and foremost, can you remind me one more time, what is a STAR story?
Sure. A STAR story is a framework for telling your story. It stands for situation, task, action, result. And a lot of times we put a T at the end and put takeaway. So it's really a nice organized framework or structure for telling a story, particularly in an interview, so that you can be prepared in advance for the interview, so that you don't go into amygdala hijack, as well as you stay nice and concise with the interview, so you're not going on and rambling like I just did.
So and you didn't just ramble, just so you know.
I know.
Does an employer want to hear you're interviewing with somebody right now? Right? Do you want to hear an employee say, you know what, I may not know all the answers, but I'm willing to do everything I can to find them?
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
So what an employer wants to hear is, how do you problem solve? How do you think? They don't necessarily want to hear you say, I have the exact right answer. So in fact, there will be employers, especially when it comes to the technical side of things, there will be employers who will give you a question that either they know that you is a little bit beyond your ability to complete, or is you're not able to solve for it. And what they want to understand is, how do you problem solve? How do you think through a problem?
So if you're speaking to an employer, right, telling them like this dream that, you know what, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work harder than anybody else, you know, you should hire me, because like that is the opposite that you ever want to do.
Well, so you don't want to say I'm going to work hard. You want to show. It's like show, don't tell, right? That's like the first rule of fiction. And it's the first rule of interviewing. You want to, and that's part of why you want to have STAR stories, because one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make in interviews is when asked a question, tell me about a time where, and then insert a circumstance, people talk about what they would do rather than what they have done. And what an employer wants to hear is, they want to hear your proven track record of doing that thing. So if an employer says to you, tell me about a time that you navigated through conflict, they don't want to hear you say like, well, if I had conflict, here are the steps I would take, because that's a future state. They want to know, what have you done in the past, because that's the most accurate predictor of the future.
So you're hiring the person as they are, not who they say they're going to become, essentially.
Correct.
Now, give me an idea. What is an example of a STAR story that maybe you could think of a random student on a program? You don't need to say their name, but if you put together maybe like a STAR story on the top, just off the top of your head, do you have one that you can use as an example?
Yes. Hold on. Let me think of one. And I'm not prepared for this, but I will. So I will just say, I have a STAR worksheet for anybody who wants to put together their STAR stories. Because before I give you an example of a STAR story, the thing I'm going to tell you that's most important in an interview is that not just that you have your STAR stories, but that you customize your STAR stories for that particular role at that particular company. Because the main thing employers want to hear, they don't want to hear like, oh, hey, I want a job, or hey, I'm a really good, software developer. They want to hear, I want this job at this company, and I am the right fit for this job at this company. And one of the ways you do that is you incorporate the language of the job description and the company into your STAR stories. So you use the verbs from the job description. You use the language of the values. So what I will often do is say, take the company values and write your star stories. Let's say a company value is determination. Tell me about a time where you displayed determination. And I can give you a star story. Is it okay if I give you a star story kind of from my own background?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, cool. So here's a star story. So, I'll encourage people to use the words situation, task, action, results, takeaways. So the situation was I was working on an employer partnerships team in 2023 when employers weren't really hiring. My task was to cultivate relationships with employers at a time where they weren't really hiring, which was pretty tricky. So the actions I took is I had regular meetings with employers just to keep my finger on the pulse. I asked them what they were looking for in candidates, and we worked together to develop different programs where there would be mock interviews. They would come and talk to students to just kind of keep a pipeline.
Notice how
open,
she
but
has
also
a
to keep
framework for
students
responding to this.
engaged with
That's what we want to hear above
companies.
all else.
And as a result, when companies started hiring again, they had a whole pipeline of interested students that they had cultivated relationships with over a year when they weren't hiring. My takeaway is, like, even though my immediate goal was to get people jobs with companies, I had to take a much longer view and cultivate relationships. Even though I couldn't achieve the short-term goal, I had to make that goal long-term.
So what I'm hearing is that you have more than anything else, right? Is that you have a clear black and white framework to show that you have a way to assess problems and a way to essentially tell and show that you have been in situations where you've had to problem solve before.
Absolutely. Yes.
Any final points on this before we hop off?
It's one of my favorite things to talk about, and frankly, anybody can learn how to tell star stories, and they can be helpful in so many other places. They can be helpful when you're walking through your code with a technical mentor. They can be helpful when just kind of trying to organize stories that you want to share. But really being prepared for interviews with star stories helps you shine so that you don't go into that stress state, the amygdala hijack state, and you can shine and be yourself in an interview because you're prepared.
So it's a lot about preparation more than anything else.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, you definitely want to be prepared. And hey, Nathan, guess what? In today's career cultivation call at 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be talking about star stories. So if anybody wants to actually put this into action, come to today's 7 p.m. career cultivation call.
I love that. All right. Thank you so much. And drop in the chat one more time in Discord so people know exactly how to get a hold of you.
Will do. Thanks for the call, Nathan.
No worries. Bye. So again, this hits home on the idea. What do we need? We need to have the ability to show that we have a problem-solving framework in our mind, right? We have a process to follow through, and this isn't something that you're just running through off the top of your head. The big problem is, and we remember this from the last episode, does everybody remember 1 or 2 episodes ago, 98% of all job applicants do not have the skills required for that job. 98%. So understanding that 98% of people that are applying to any job do not have the actual requirements for that job, right? They're grasping for anybody who could just say, hey, I have experience here. I could help you with XYZ, and here's why, right? Or hey, even though I don't have the 2 to 3 years of experience, I'm relatively new, let me talk about how I solve problems as a software engineer. Problem solved, right? So it's a little bit less about, hey, I built this project and this is why it was cool. It's a little bit, no, hey, I was given this project. They wanted me to build a backend for XYZ. This was the task that I had. Here's how I would go about putting the entire thing together and going about building it. And this is what I did to build it. I faced a handful of bugs. When I faced each bug, this is how I researched how to solve it. And this is the code that I was able to build. And this is XYZ. So one thing you might have noticed with Peter, for example, and if you've done any of our hackathons, one of the things that we always recommend to students is, hey, talk me through what you're doing right now. Talk me through it. And they want to show an example like this. I'm going to share my screen one more time. I don't know if everybody remembers this call from last week with Peter. right? It's kind of weird seeing myself twice. But does everybody remember last week where Peter was like, if you want to look like a professional, you do this? So what is the, like, so right
So he's
here, you're
basically
getting
just, he's talking about like why, like the name choices he gave to.
This is about how to go into any code base, understand how to navigate it, understand the small scope of work that you're going to be given, and how to work on that. Because any of you who are entry-level developers, you're going to be relatively hopeless when you first start. So what happens is they're going to give you a very small scope of work to work on whenever you get started, right? And they're going to hope that first and foremost, you can get into the code base and understand how to navigate it. So many people, because they start learning how to code, they're so focused on how to create something that they forget and lose the ability to take a bigger step back and strategically think, okay, here's the code base. What is everything doing in here? One of the things that Peter talked about was anytime you step into a new business, you need to be able to understand, hey, what's the code base, what's happening? And in this episode that was posted, it's the How to Become a Grandmaster SE. He specifically talks about how to get experience doing this, right? He specifically talks about, here's that little annotation. When he comes into a company, what does he do, right? So he talks about how to go into a code base, how to separate the code and the concerns, how do they modulate the code, how do I find the intuitiveness of the code base, and how does everything relate to each other. If you don't understand over time how to do these things, you're not going to be able to really stand out in the job search. So today, we're going to end up cutting a little bit short. Tomorrow, we're going to have an absolutely packed day. We're going to have multiple guests on. Today was a little bit more problematic because we had to do it through OBS instead of Riverside. We're going to have to get it figured out on how to bring individuals on for when we do the OBS. But one thing I really want to point out above all else, we're going to continue to focus on our ability to be self-aware. What is the good, the bad, the ugly about us? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? And how can we continue to improve with time? By the time you finish a program like DevSlips, you're 2 years in, you have a lot of freelance work underneath your belt. You have a lot of experience learning how to market and sell yourself. You should know how to really stand out. The only way to do that is understanding the business side. What is the business looking for? How do you sell yourself to the employer? How do you speak the employer's lingo? Those are all the things that we're going to be covering here soon, but that's going to be a wrap for today. Relatively shorter episode. What I'm going to be looking for in the meantime is I would love y'all to be hitting up my DMs on what you want to hear about. What are the things that you struggle with the most? Robert Greene emphasized a really big aspect, which was understanding how to work with a mentor. I'm the mentor when it comes to that self-awareness piece, the business piece, the really crafting the story piece. Let's use these episodes as a chance for you to really understand how to craft those parts. If you come from an experience where you've been working as a cattle rancher and you want to get into software engineering, how are we going to shift that image? Let's talk about all those things. So blow up my DM so we can learn more about this and we can take that discussion and take it further. Thank y'all so much for watching today. Can't wait to see you on episode whatever tomorrow. And I'll see you guys at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll talk to all of y'all here soon.